Only a few more days until the weekend is upon us and we get back to some college football action. And what a weekend it is! We've got a lot to talk about, and we need to preview some of these games this weekend. We have a massive game in the Big Ten. SEC hosts a major rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas get back after it. We're going to talk about all of that. Huge game in the Pac 12. Major rumors in the Pac 12 that we need to talk about. We need to talk about something that Oklahoma football needs to continue doing, something that may seem small, but often it's the small details that make the largest difference. And then we really need to preview this Alabama-Tennessee game. So really exciting day of college football news, college football talking points. As you're trickling in, hit the like button, hop down and chat. As always, a special thank you to Shady Mile Bourbon. Awesome stuff, unbelievable value. They have you guys at the forefront of everything they do. That's why they're giving you a quality product at a quality price. But let's jump right into this. Thomas, thank you for hopping in here this morning, man. Excited for you to be in here. And what a day. What a day. We need to talk about a lot. Now, I'm going to start this off with one of the easiest segments I think we're going to do today. And it's easy because it's not going to take me long to summarize it. I think this is a very digestible talking point, one that people will be able to understand. And it's something that might often be overlooked. But we're going to start this off with Oklahoma, because the Oklahoma Sooners get back after it this week after a massive victory against their rival where they got back that 49-0 in blood. And good for Oklahoma. That's exactly what you want to see. This Brent Venables team continues fighting. But what does Oklahoma need to do? Well, quite frankly, the Oklahoma Sooners need to keep keeping the main thing the main thing. What I mean is this. Oklahoma just played a game that many college football players will never experience an environment like that. In fact, for many players across college football, an environment like that is their Super Bowl. You don't find environments like that a dime a dozen in college football, which is what makes that game so special. It is genuinely one of the top 5 most entertaining games every single year. It's a game that college football fans, regardless of their affiliation, look forward to every single year because that environment, it can't be mimicked. Oklahoma overcame that, and now it's time to keep the main thing the main thing. What I mean when I say that is Oklahoma and Brent Venables need to continue doing exactly what they've been doing to get them to this point. Keep after the small details, because oftentimes the small details are the details that we think about and say, you know, I don't have to do this small thing today because I have these 3 big things. But often it's the small details that make the most difference. And if Oklahoma continues doing exactly what they're doing, they're going to be fine. Now, I know that might sound like boring analysis or an obvious statement, but at the same time, coming off of that game, emotions are high. Understandably so, especially after all of the talk from last season. Understand this isn't a run-of-the-mill college football program we're talking about here. If we were talking about a run-of-the-mill college football program, that season last year, that's much more digestible. The chatter that these Sooner players hear, that's much more digestible. If this was a run-of-the-mill program, a program accustomed to the results they felt last year, it's not. It's Oklahoma. It's one of the winningest college football programs there is. They're not accustomed to 6 and 7. Hell, many of the players on that team have never seen Oklahoma experience anything like that. So emotions were high coming into the season, which is why I've taken every opportunity I can, even when we were trying to figure out how good Oklahoma was. Even when we were there, I've taken every opportunity I could to point out the obvious talking point that Brent Venables needs to be recognized, and this staff needs to be recognized, and the Oklahoma players need to be recognized for the turnaround that they've experienced in a year, because it's awesome to see. It's not typical. And the reason they got here is by keeping the main thing the main thing. Oklahoma played with emotion. They didn't play emotional. And understand, those 2 letters make a lot of difference. In doing something with emotion, channeling your emotion so that it's conducive to success, and then letting emotion overcome you to where you are then emotional. Understand, those are 2 very different principalities. 2 very different principalities. Oklahoma is playing with emotion. They are not yet playing emotional. They're keeping the main thing the main thing. And that's what you love to see. That's what you love to see. Oklahoma doesn't have to reassess, do anything fancy. They just have to understand that the job isn't yet done. Now, I have no way, shape, or form, and in me saying this, I'm not saying that I think Oklahoma is thinking any differently. I don't think a Brent Venables coach team would think like that. When I look at the coaches that Brent Venables has learned from, that's not the MO. Nowhere close. I have no doubt that that's the message being preached to the Oklahoma Sooners right now. Now, we're going to lightly preview the game this weekend because I think Oklahoma is going to handle UCF, but let's give UCF their credit where it's due. This UCF rushing attack, it's effective, and it's not just coming from one place. And because of that, they're attempting to use the running game to get defenses in positions that are confusing. We know what UCF is going to try and do. I think Oklahoma is well equipped to stop it. And furthermore, can you stop the Oklahoma offense? Oklahoma's rushing attack still needs to really become the rushing attack we think it can be. We know it can be, I will say. I can't say we think it can be because we actually saw a tangible example of it last year, absent Eric Gray, with Sawchuk, with Barnes. So I can't even say think it will be, that we know it can be because we saw it. We saw it. I think Travis last week on the JP and Indy show, by the way, guys, if you're not watching that, JP and Indy, they are doing unbelievable stuff. Love their channel. Anytime they ask me to come on, I jump at the opportunity to hop on there, talk football with them. Travis pointed out something that I have talked about, but I think that Travis really got down to the crux of the issue when he was talking to some players around college football or coaches around the industry. And one thing we talked about here on the channel is that the Oklahoma running backs are so in go mode because you run tempo, right? We know Jeff Lebby loves that tempo. But tempo is the MO until the ball is hiked, and then it's time for form football. But tempo has this uncanny ability to lull a defense to sleep. But if you think about it logically, it can also lull your offense to sleep. And Travis made this point, and it was an unbelievable point. For those of you that were there, I was smiling from ear to ear when Travis made it. RJ, my brother, what is up, man? Been far too long. Guys, RJ Moore Malone in with us today, former college football player, someone who has been on the show, friend of the show, offers great insight. Absolutely need to have you back on, RJ. Hope you're doing well, my man. And Stink Ass Cat with the 20. Thank you so much for the donation, Stink. He says the general media as a whole went back to downplaying OU, except for a few analysts like you, Ty, that know what they are talking about. Yeah, look, one thing we need to remember, Stink, and I always operate under this assumption, right? I'm not one of those people that's like media bad, right? Because at some level, I am media, right? Like, even though I'm not official media, me doing YouTube, I at some level I qualify as media. So I'm never going to be one of those people that's like media outright bad, because I think there's a nuance here. But I think, Stink, part of that nuance is the media gets really caught up in recency bias. And I think part of the reason why we're seeing this downplaying right now is that Oklahoma came off of a bye. Washington got a great win. I mean, there's no taking away the win from Washington, but as always, the media will kind of do this thing where Washington gets a great win, but because we didn't see OU play, they go with recency bias instead of, okay, Washington's win is fantastic, but is it objectively better than the Oklahoma win over Texas? Now, I contend no. I don't think it's better because I think that the neutral location adds something, and I understand that game is always played at a neutral location. I understand it's a rivalry game, but I still think that win, even if it's by 1% more, I still think that the Oklahoma win is a bit more impressive than that Oregon-Washington win. Now, understand, I'm giving you that analysis with the mind space of I thought Oregon was probably a little bit better than their ranking showed in that game. So I think that Washington's win is very impressive. But Stink, I think that it's a recency bias thing. I think that, and two, I think, one, we have a recency bias. Okay. That they say Texas is a superior team. Gotcha. Gotcha. I see what you're saying now. Yeah, Texas is a super complete team. But I think Stink, if we're taking from that perspective, I offer you this. I apologize, I misunderstood. But I still think that we can end up with the proper analysis here. I offer you this. This goes back to something we just talked about earlier in this very stream. That Oklahoma fans, I know that this is kind of something that you're going to want to hear and not want to hear at the same time. Bobby says, roll tide. Coach Smook in the house. Coach, thank you for being in here. Bobby, we're going to talk about Alabama. We got to talk about this Tennessee game. But Stink, giving you the analysis, right? This goes back to something I just said. Oklahoma fans and college football fans in general, we need to all take a step back collectively and drop your affiliation from any team. So if you're an Oklahoma fan right now, I need you to pretend you're not. You're just a college football fan. You're just a fan of the game. I just introduced you to the game yesterday. You don't know anything about it. You're just a fan of the game. We all need to have a level of appreciation for what Brent Venables has done. And I think, Stink, part of that mindset of like, oh, well, Texas is still better is people have not yet fully grasped what Brent Venables has done, because that type of turnaround isn't necessarily the objective norm. It's not. Now, the areas such as the transfer portal, that certainly allows for easier transitions, but it's still not the norm. And I think that's where we get into this interesting sort of dichotomy, right? Where we have a recency bias thing, my example of the Washington-Oregon game and Washington jumping OU in the AP poll. I think it's an unbelievable win for Washington. I believe Washington is a college football playoff team. I have my own rankings. But if you're asking me who had the better win, I got to give it to Oklahoma. Texas is a very good team. And Stink, I also saw some people questioning, is Texas a good team? Yes. Yeah, no, that's a great Texas team, which makes that OU win very impressive because that is a very good Texas team. So I think it's one of those things where it's all the way around. I think part of it comes down to your average college football fan isn't really appreciating what they've seen in front of them. And I don't mean that they're like willingly not appreciating it. I think we as humans are conditioned to believe something up until the very crux of the point where we must change our beliefs, right? And I think that extends far past college football. I think we as humans are so entrenched in our own beliefs that it is going to take a bright line to get us to move off of where we currently sit in our analysis to maybe a different way of thinking. And I think the reason I bring that up, I think right now people are conditioned to see Oklahoma as a 6-7 team because that's what they saw last year. And college football inherently is a what have you done for me lately type business. It's the reason why Oklahoma, you'll have people tell you, what have you done the past 20 years? You've only been one of the most winning programs in all of college football. Only one team can win a national championship. It's the same reason why you have people all over Dabo, and it's like, yeah, maybe the results aren't there, but like objectively speaking, Dabo won a natty. Right? Like there's recency bias, and we get so involved in recency bias that that's when we get back into this position of humans and human nature. We don't want to change our positions. And so I think, OU beats Texas, and then it's like, okay, well, they did that. But then as more time goes on, we fall back into our analysis of what makes us comfortable, of what we believe to be true instead of what we have seen to be true. That gets us into a whole fascinating discussion of my thought and philosophy on like human understanding as it relates to our ability to move forward and like digest new information and do something with it. And that's not college football related. So I'm going to move it past that, Stink, because I'll get real philosophical in here. That's fun, man. Love that question. Thank you so much. Steven says it's equal in my opinion. The Washington, Oregon is just more by fair. Coach Smook, my man, I agree. Yeah, that Oklahoma's been good, man. It's just the AP poll, which is objectively terrible. Fair. Fight on, Sooners. Texas and OU see each other again. Texas wins. It's going to be a great game, Smook. No doubt about it. That game's going to be great. It's always real tough to beat the same team twice. That being said, I think in that game, Oklahoma proved that if we play this game 10 times, it's not like one of those things where this was an objective fluke. Like, we are going to scrap for 10 times, and it's going to be unbelievable. I think most people realize Texas and Oregon largely beat themselves. Yes and no, Mark. Look, I hear you. I can understand the thought, but I also think that, like, Oklahoma put Texas in positions to not take advantage, and Texas didn't. I think that's because all the community says Texas better than Oklahoma. Yeah, and that's also a thing, Vegas and stuff. Yeah, it's done isn't seen a lot. Yeah, exactly, coach. We just don't see someone have a bottom 100 defense one year and then a top 20 defense the next. In, like, pretty much every major category. Texas with one loss is still a top 5. Yeah, 100% Smoot, 100%. But that's why I said, like, we need to keep it real, because I still believe that Texas team is unbelievable. I never bought into the notion after that game that you saw on Twitter, where it wasn't necessarily just from Oklahoma fans, it was from college football fans, because Texas is one of those brands that evokes the wrath of college football. And you heard a bunch of people saying, see, Texas isn't that good. And I was like, no, you're looking at this wrong. Texas is a very good team. That's a very good Oklahoma team. That's the result. These are two really good teams. I never bought into that notion that Texas wasn't a good team after that loss. I completely agree with you, Smook, 100%. Texas is still a very good team. When they play complete football, they are a very tough team. I wouldn't be, man. Can you imagine how unbelievable that game would be if OU faced Washington? It'd be so much fun. Mars, my man, hope you're here. Hope you're here. You're obviously here. Man, that was stupid. Oh, man, that was dumb. Well, this is what y'all get. You get to see my mess ups live. You're obviously here. Hope you're having a good day, Mars. Glad you're here is what I think I meant to say. Texas, 3 turnovers. JT Sanders should not have played. Third center starting 3/4 of the game. Listen, Danny, I hear you. The injuries happen. Oklahoma had several key injuries. Their number 1 wide receiver went down. I think they also had an offensive lineman went down. As far as 3 turnovers is concerned, Oklahoma took 2 of them. Straight up took 2 of them. Now, that first pass where Quinn Ewers was intercepted, I've said this and I will maintain this. I have no idea what he was looking at. Gentry Williams was in inside leverage the whole time. He ran the route better than the wide receiver did, honestly. He led him the entire time. Quinn looked at it, went to throw it, decided I probably shouldn't, and then said, meh, why not? And then threw an interception, and it was brain-breaking. Yeah, that was perplexing. That pick will never make sense to me. I do not understand. Maybe he thought that the colors were flipped. I don't know. But the other turn, and even then, guys, we got to give Gentry credit, right? Because you had that whole pre-shift. So you do have to give Oklahoma credit for that pick, Danny, even though I completely agree with you. Quinn never should have thrown that ball. That Oklahoma defense knew what was coming, and they shifted their alignment, and Gentry then shifted to inside leverage because they dissected what was coming at them from an offensive play call perspective. So Gentry was straight up on him, then shifts to inside leverage to be able to account for the inside slant that's coming. Quinn never should have thrown the ball, but credit to the Oklahoma defense for knowing what came, for shifting the play, and credit to Gentry Williams for bearing down on it. But the other ones, that's the Oklahoma defense playing savage football. And even in that first one, that's the Oklahoma defense playing unbelievable football. I think in that first interception, it's one of the interesting times where 2 things can be true at the same time. That Quinn shouldn't have thrown the ball, and that we have got to credit the Oklahoma defense for shifting into that, getting that play. Let's talk about Texas, because Texas also hits the trail this week. We talk about Oklahoma, what they need to continue doing. We know UCF's going to try and run the football at them. I just think Oklahoma's a far more complete football team. They'll keep the main thing. They'll get a big win. Let's transition to Texas, because Texas plays Houston, and I think this is a great week for Texas to really come out here and impart their will on Houston. I mean, use Houston as a punching bag. Drag them up and down the field. Because why not? You have the ability. And the one thing I've been asking of Texas football is something we haven't seen yet. Believe you me, as an Alabama fan, I mean, Smoot can tell you, Bama, I haven't seen play full 4 quarters of football maybe since 2021 SEC championship game, right? Like, Texas has the talent to make the college football playoffs. I mean, Texas has the talent. But are you going to be the one to push the pace and to dictate what type of football game is played? Or are you going to be fine sitting back and saying, you can tell me what type of game we're going to play? I'll show up and I'll try and win. Aquarian, I might have trailed off that very because I think we had some comments. But I will go ahead and make that and then jump back into Texas right here because I very well could have. The point Travis was making is that when you run tempo offense and Oklahoma runs so much tempo, the point of tempo offense is to lull a defense to sleep, right? You show them something, show them something, show them something, show them something, and then you switch it up. But that tempo, they've been lulled into being like, here it is, here it is, here it is. It's to gas them out. It's to lull them to sleep. There are several different reasons why you run tempo. But logically, if we think of this from a psychological perspective and we think, okay, well, if tempo can lull a defense, it's equally logical that tempo can, in fact, lull an offense. Tempo is supposed to be just that, tempo until the ball is hiked. Once the ball is hiked, that's when you need to go back into your more form style of football. But because you've been into this mindset of go, 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 the Oklahoma running backs will get the ball and their mindset is go, because that's everything that's happened leading up to the snap. The reason why that's problematic is how often does Oklahoma run runs based off of pulling offensive linemen? Right now, in my opinion, one of the biggest issues with the Oklahoma running game is your running backs want to get to the hole so quickly. They're getting to the hole either at the same time as the offensive lineman, or in some cases against Cincinnati, they were beating the offensive lineman to the hole. And I think that was a result of tempo. And that's not my thinking. That was Travis's analysis of it. And that's what I said was, I think it's brilliant. Like, I had such a big smile on my face when he said that, because logically and psychologically speaking, it makes so much sense. Like, that's such a cool point to me. That's such a cool point to me. Yeah, but that's football, Mark. I hear you, but that's football. That's football. I hear you. That's the game of football. You're gonna be dealing with banged up teams. Oklahoma was banged up, and you got to find a way to win. That's why you recruit. That's why you get the depth. And I'm not saying it's easy, but that's football, right? Like, every team in the nation right now can insert injury talk. And I'm not saying it's not warranted. Like, you did have some big injuries. I agree with you. The center going down, that sucks. But fair enough. Fair play. Fair play. I missed that. Fair enough. I mean, listen, guys, injuries are a legitimate excuse, but at the same time, it is football. It's going to happen. It's unfortunate. Bear Bryant once said a quote that always stuck with me whenever he was talking about national championship. He said, someone asked Bear Bryant what it takes to win a national championship. He said, discipline. You gotta be very disciplined. You have got to be very detail oriented, and you've got to be lucky. And that's the unfortunate reality. There's a level of luck. There's a level of luck involved in winning a national championship. Can you stay healthy in a very violent game? And yeah, I love football. That's the one downside, is the injuries. The only thing I don't love about football is the injuries. Everything else I absolutely love about it. But Texas going up against Houston. Look, Texas, they need to take the attack to Houston. Far too often this year, I've seen Texas be perfectly fine with letting the other team dictate what style of football game they would play. Now, Texas can get away with it because they're really well coached. They're really talented. They've got great coaches all along that staff. But you're doing yourself a disservice. At a certain point, you need to establish this is Texas football, and you're playing Texas football when you line up against us. At a certain point, that has got to be the MO. You've got the talent. You've got the quarterback. You've got the coordinators. At a certain point, you have got to dictate what type of game you are going to lay forward. Keep on the green. Hey, man, I'm not a big baseball fan. I'm just a hat fan. So I'll open up a P.O. box and y'all can send me all the hats you want and I'll wear them. I'll wear them. I just got family in New York. So I got to have the New York hat on. But fair enough. Fair enough. I got no ill feelings towards the Mets because, like I said, I'm not the biggest baseball fan. I respect the game of baseball. I love its history and what it's meant to America, but not actively keeping up with it, right? Like if you ask me what teams are doing good this year, I wouldn't have the first idea what to tell you. I don't know who's on what team. I have no idea. So yeah, respect, Ryan, respect. Love that. I saw that and it made me laugh as I was going. Listen, I'm not going to talk too much more about Texas because I fully expect them to crush Houston. I expect Texas to just make a fool out of every team left on their schedule because that's exactly what they need to do. That's exactly what they need to do. Very excited to see the prospective rematch. Very excited to see the prospective rematch against Oklahoma. And this is true, guys. This is true. Mark didn't bring up the game. It got brought up organically, which is fine. It's one of the biggest games of the year. If we want to talk about it, we can talk about it. I'm here for it. It's all good, but it wasn't just brought up off the cuff, guys. Mark's good people. I love you, Mark. And guys, we're about halfway through, and it might be a little early, but it's never too early to talk about Shady Mile. Shady Mile, sponsor of the channel, helping us keep the lights on, helping us make great content or try to make great content. And I can't say enough, man. They were one of the first sponsors on the channel. We're still growing. Home Field has helped us out, but Shady Mile really showing the love, sending the brothers, or sending the guys. Y'all are hearing me all over the place in today's live. I'm sending the bottles, and I look down and see LOL Cheers Brothers and say sending the brother. No, they sent the bottles. And it's just an awesome thing. Really looking into Shady Mile, getting to talk to them was really eye-opening because they're one of Kentucky's oldest distilleries. And the thing that's so cool about that is you would think that a distillery with that much history would be putting out a product that is exponentially more expensive. And it's not. They're putting out a quality product at a quality price. And that's the thing I got to respect about Shady Mile. This weekend, if you're looking for a beverage of choice, check out some Shady Mile. Sponsor of the channel. Can't say enough about them. Their link is both in the description and in the scroll down here. Let's talk about USC. Because USC has a big game this weekend. I'm going to lightly preview that game because I'm going to go ahead and let it be known. I think USC gets one back this week. I think USC will down Utah. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. I think it's going to be really ugly, but I do think that they take this one back. And the reason is Utah is just limping all over the place. Appreciate you for showing Shady Miles some love, Steven. And I got to say, Shady Miles actually saw some of the comments from some of you guys saying that you actually enjoyed the product. They loved it. They loved it. Really, really excited to see some of that feedback, especially so early. So you guys already helping out the channel by just showing the love. Ryan, I'm going to star your comment. I'm going to get through this USC thing. We're going to come back to this question, and then we are going on to Bama after USC. USC versus Utah. I expect USC to get the win. Utah's limping into this game. I don't know the health status of anybody because I keep hearing maybe this week, and it's not this week. So until I see some of those Utah's players take the field, I'm operating under the assumption that they're not going to be there. I think USC gets it back this week. I think they've heard all. I'm going to answer that one later as well. I think they've heard all of the talk, and I think they get a game back because, guys, if we look at USC's schedule the rest of the way through, it's rough. They have got a real tough run of it. I mean, I don't envy USC's schedule. And I think at the beginning of the year, there were some people like, oh, they've got it a little tough. They play Washington, they play Oregon. Now we're looking at their schedule, and it's like, my God, you're about to go through a gauntlet. So I think they get this one back, but then we have a totally different conversation about Oregon. We have a totally different conversation about Washington. about some of these other teams, Utah is just so compromised. And it's still a very good Utah team. If you have Kyle Whittingham on that sidelines, one thing I can pretty much will guarantee, you can bet your sweet Bippy that they're going to be disciplined. They're going to be very disciplined. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that Utah is not going to find ways to really affect USC in this game. I think Mark hits the nail on the head right here. USC's got problems on the line of scrimmage, which is incredible when you look at who their offensive line coach is, which is Josh Henson. Mark, I don't have to tell you this. Josh Henson was just at Texas A&M. He put together an offensive line, really patchworked an offensive line of freshmen and everything to a unit that was super compromised. A&M's offensive line was fantastic under Henson. Fantastic being a little bit of an overstatement, because I think when I say fantastic, they overperformed expectations. They were really solid. Fantastic if you're looking at it through the lens of this was an offensive line that should have been compromised, should have had holes, and they handled their business, but they were a good offensive line. I'm not seeing USC win big-time recruits. You have Brandon Baker, and he ends up at Texas. Now, you're not going to win all of your recruiting battles. You're not going to win all the recruiting battles in your state. Recruiting is way too national, and unfortunately for USC, Steve Sarkisian has that California connection. And on top of that, you're talking about recruiting against Kyle Flood, and I haven't looked to see who all the guys were that were involved for Brandon Baker, but I can imagine they had Jeff Banks in on that one as well. Jeff Banks is a hell of a recruiter. I can imagine Brandon Baker, and if I'm wrong, Texas fans, please hop in here and correct me, but I mean, Kyle Flood's already an elite recruiter, and then if Jeff Banks was involved with it, I know Sark was involved with it because of the Cali connection. How do you let him leave? You're not going to win all your battles, but man, how do you let him leave? And if I'm not mistaken, USC wasn't even one of the top choices. We were talking Oregon, which I get Oregon. Oregon recruits really well. And listen, guys, we got to have a conversation here very soon about Dan Lanning. We're going to have a conversation here real soon about Dan Lanning. Real soon. No chicken. Great point. Well received. What's the difference between A&M and USC strength coaches? Because at the time when Josh Henson was at A&M, he had Smitty, who's now at Oklahoma. That was the strength and conditioning coach. Now with USC, he has Benny Wiley. And there is a difference. There is a difference. So when you look at USC, I'm not saying you have to win all the battles, but you for a guy like Brandon Baker, whenever you have offensive line issues and he's in your state, you got to at least come in the top teams. You don't have to win. You got to come in on the top teams. And then we saw some offensive linemen flip from USC. In fact, an offensive lineman I really liked in their class, I was really high on, flipped to Florida State. I think Florida State got a hell of a player that nobody's talking about. I think Florida State got a hell of an offensive lineman. Real green. Doesn't have a ton of experience, came over to play basketball to the United States, ended up finding football, and instantly has college football offers from Division I programs. That's how damn good he is. He's legit. But he was a part of that USC class he flipped, which gets us into the rumors. Because right now, USC isn't recruiting well. I like Florida State too, Mars. I'm going to be honest, though, guys. I'm one of those people. I like a lot of college teams. Don't get me wrong. I'm not fans. But, like, having done YouTube now, I started doing this full-time 2021, January 1st, 2021. So, we're going on 3 years. January 1st, 2024 is coming up. We're going on 3 years having done YouTube. One thing that I've really gained an appreciation for is college football as a whole, right? Having done this, the more I expand, the more I talk about it, the more I realize is that I love college football. I have my fandom, and I will die with that fandom. No doubt about it. But I love college football. And because of that, I find things I like about all college football teams now. because I'm more interested in the larger picture. So I agree with you. I agree with you there. But this gets us into the second thing, because USC isn't recruiting great. They're not recruiting terrible. But Lincoln Riley, whenever he left Oklahoma, one of the big reasons he said he left Oklahoma is that he needed to be able to recruit. That he wanted to go somewhere where he could get the type of recruit he wanted. That's fine. If you believe that, that's fine. I'm not saying that you have to be a number one recruiting class every year once you say that statement. But you know what I am saying? And maybe this is just me, because I'll tell y'all what, I'm ornery. If you'll excuse my French, my father used to tell me that hard head of yours makes for a soft ass, right? Like, I'm ornery. I'm hard-headed. I don't have a lot of quit in me. And Guts, listen, I'm not going to talk about the family stuff, because that's always a legitimate reason. If you're saying, hey, I'm moving from my family, I'm not your family. I'm not one to tell you what opportunities are best or not best for your family. That's for you to decide. I'm not going to hit that. I'm going to keep it strictly business. We're going to keep it football. Not buying that Riley just wanted to go, oh, listen, whether we buy it or not, I'm just giving you the reasons he said. He said, we need to go over there so we can recruit. Now, like I said, I'm a real ornery one. I'm real stubborn. I'm one of those where you knock me down, I'm getting right back up. If I had left Oklahoma to go to USC, if I was Lincoln Riley and I had left and said, I need to go to USC so that I can recruit better, I would make it my life's mission. I would have our NIL you bet I wouldn't come in with less than a top 10 class, or I would die trying, because that would eat me up. If I was Lincoln Riley, it would eat me up to have had said that, coming from a blue blood program that has known naught but success. And you can tell me, but Ty, what about the national championships? They got a lot of them. And if you really want to get into it, only one team wins a national championship every year. National championship is a barometer of success, no doubt about it, but I don't know that it's the barometer of success, because only one team wins it every year, and I'm not going to believe there's only one good team in college football every year. I'm not inclined to believe that. Oklahoma's been a winning program. They have the rings, they've got the Heismans, they've got the coaches, they've got the alumni, they've got the players. And you left for USC, which is fine. I'm not here to tell you what to do. If you wanted to go to USC, that's all that you need. If Lincoln Riley would have came out and just said, I wanted to go to USC, cool. That's fine. It's a free country. And if you want to go to USC, that's awesome, man. That's cool. That's fine. But Brent Venables was never a head coach. And Brent Venables walks through the door after Lincoln left and saved that class, put it together, patched it together, and assembled a top 10 recruiting class and a top 10 class in transfer portal acquisitions. Lincoln Riley said he couldn't do it. We fast forward. Venables puts together a top 5 class and a top 10 class in transfer portal acquisitions. We go further. Brent Venables is on his way to putting together his third top 10 recruiting class for the Oklahoma Sooners. He could hit top 5. Now, that'll be real tough, only because whenever we look at this, Oklahoma sitting at 25 prospects right now, 3 guys, they're trending their way, right? So we could be looking at 28 prospects here very soon for Oklahoma. They're going to be a top 10 class, but you look at some of those top 5 classes. I think Florida's got 23 prospects. Bama's got 20. They'll hit 25. So it's wild what they've done. But it's wild what Brent Venables has done. 3 years, 3 top 10 classes. Lincoln Riley said he couldn't recruit there. That would fire me up. Like, that would keep me up at night. I'm not lying. That would keep me up at night if I was Lincoln Riley. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I left there because I couldn't recruit, and now they're out recruiting me, and the cat they hired has never been a college football coach, and he's out recruiting me. And I came to LA where I said I had all these resources, and I'm getting my ass kicked in recruiting. Listen, I want USC to be good. I do. I said this before Lincoln Riley got there. I said it whenever they still had Clay Helton, that I wanted them to move off of Clay Helton because college football is better when USC is good. I said that before Lincoln Riley ever got there. And I maintain I want USC to be a good team. But maybe it's the competitor in me. Even though I didn't play college football, I did do some form of competition because I crave competition. That wouldn't sit right with me. I would be doing everything I could. I'm not saying you have got to out-recruit Oklahoma, because I don't think Lincoln really understood what he had at Oklahoma. If we're being honest, I don't think he did. I'm not saying you have to out-recruit them. You can't be not a top 10 recruiting class, though. You just can't. You just can't. So whenever we move forward, and now there are rumors coming up, I'm not saying whether rumors are true or not because I have no damn idea. I have no clue. But I do look at patterns. I say this all the time on this show, and I'm going to say it one more time. I do look at patterns. I'm not an insider. I will occasionally get information that people don't know, and it's just because I'm a curious person. I have no will to break news. I have no will to be, to be the one that was like, oh, I knew. I'm here to talk about football. I'm here whenever we talk about recruits, I'm here to tell their story. I'm here to tell you why you should be excited because they got an opportunity. That's my purpose here when I talk about recruiting. It's to get you guys fired up for the recruits that have committed to your team. Whether they're a 3-star, a 2-star, a 4-star, or a 5-star, my purpose is to tell a story as to why that scholarship matters, as to why that story matters, as to why their skill matters, because they've earned it. They worked hard. It's their moment. I'm no insider, but I do read tea leaves. I do read tea leaves. Not very well, mind you, but I read. Depending on what you would call reading if you ask my wife, who is a teacher. That's neither here nor there. When I look at this, there's an interesting pattern that's emerged, and I've talked about it. I don't think that the Alex Grinch defense works in the Big Ten. We've seen it in the Big Ten. So it's not like I'm giving you this analysis from nowhere. I have seen it actively in the Big Ten. If it was going to work anywhere, it was going to be the Pac-12. And make no mistake, if you're Alex Grinch, I was sitting here thinking, okay, well, there is a world where he goes to USC, the defense really starts clicking. Because I think that you could run that defense in the Pac-12. And if you start clicking that defense, and if he starts finding what really works in it, he can evolve it to where it can be a viable defense. But the move is next year. The move is next year. And I'm not seeing the growth in the defense that you would really hope for. And I could excuse some of that if I looked in your recruiting class and I saw a class that I looked at and I was like, damn, they got a lot of dudes that they're going to stack on that defense. I could excuse some of it if I looked in the recruiting and said, man, Grinch has got a haul coming in, guys. I know it's ugly now. But he just convinced a lot of these prospects to buy in. And if he's convinced the prospects to buy in, give him a little bit of time. Whether the time is warranted or not is a totally different conversation. Understand that. Whether it's warranted, that's a different conversation. But we're not even seeing that. And that's not the biggest problem. That's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that the biggest catalyst for why USC wins football games will not be there next year. Or at least I can't imagine a situation where Caleb will be there next year. Why? For what purpose? So I don't know if the rumor is true, but when you look at I'm getting back into my moot court debate and legal days. When you look at the totality of circumstances, when you sit back and you look at the totality of circumstances, an objective and reasonable person could be led to believe it is viable that Lincoln could leave. Because your defense isn't where you need it to be. It's damn sure not where you need it to be to win the Pac-12, let alone go win the Big Ten. And I got bad news for you. You're not escaping those high-powered offenses in Washington and Oregon. They're moving with you. So if you're sitting here disenfranchised into thinking, oh, well, no, there are some major brands moving with you. You're not alone. That's not to even speak of what's already there. And you're not going to have Caleb. I think there's a crossroads in front of us, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be very interesting to see which exit Lincoln Riley gets off at. Let's hit some comments, and then we're going to move into our last segment, Alabama, Tennessee. Oh, you having a 6 and actually offered. That's a great point. I had some starred comments I want to get to. Ryan, you said, do you think the bye week helped Oklahoma or hurt them? I see it helped for recruiting and to get healthy, but sitting on that Texas win for too long can make them stagnant. Which, Ryan, that's why I opened this up with talking about we need to keep the main thing if you're Oklahoma. Keep the main thing. That's why I brought up the analysis of if you're an Oklahoma player, you've played in that game before, that game being the Red River Shootout. But we as fans need to understand that's not just a regular game. Let's be as honest about this as possible, ladies and gentlemen. That is not just a regular game. That is 99% of college football players, that's their Super Bowl. Because the 99% of college football doesn't play for Ohio State. Ohio State plays in at the very least a comparable game against Michigan. That's a massive rivalry up there. Auburn, Alabama, massive rivalry. You have some big time rivalries in this. That Red River Shootout, that's a top 5 game every single year. Even if we don't think those teams are going to be great, pencil that one in as a top 5 game. So to most of college football, that's their Super Bowl. So yes, emotional hangover can be real, but that's where I think your coaching staff really comes in. And that's what I think separates Brent Venables is it's so easy, not only in football, but in life, to overlook the little things in favor of the small things, because logically you look at the small thing and you say, I will get a small result for that small task. You look at the big thing and you say, I will get a big payoff for that big task. But ironically, most of the time in life, it's those small payoffs that make the biggest differences. And I think with Oklahoma, you're seeing a collection of small payoffs come to fruition. About to talk about Bama for sure, Mars. Definitely want to talk about that. Julian says, morning, Ty. In your opinion, who are 2 teams you think can be very dangerous down the stretch in the college football season? Great question. Oh, man. There are so many answers to this. I think there's a world where Texas could be one of them, right? You just got punched in the jaw. How do you respond? We could see Texas come out swinging and really start playing to dictating the pace of the game, and they could be a team. Oregon, another team. Right, and these aren't necessarily like sleeper teams. I think Bama is a team you've got to watch, but Bama's got to get out of their own way. Down the stretch, man, I think Washington is an interesting team because if Washington comes out of this stretch undefeated, the conversations we're going to be having about the Huskies, unbelievable. I mean, we'll see this weekend with Penn State. Penn State could easily fit that description. If they go out there and slay the beast with freshman Drew Aller, man, Oh, Blood, love this comment. Love this comment. Biggest surprise this year, basketball schools doing great in football. How good the Pac-12 is or bad the SEC is. How good the Pac-12 is. How good the Pac-12 is. Because I think that we could have reasonably assumed that the SEC would have a down year. Now, this down I did not foresee. In total transparency, Blood. In total transparency, I did not see this down. But I think when we realized how many quarterbacks, how many coordinators were being replaced in the SEC, I think we could have seen that maybe they would have taken a step back. Now, this much of a step back, absolutely. I did not foresee the Pac-12 being this good. I thought Washington would be good. I thought USC would be good. Utah is always good, and Oregon. I did not see top to bottom the Pac-12 being must-see TV every single week. If you're not keyed into Pac-12 football, I don't know what you're doing right now. It is electric every single time. And I get to stay up past my bedtime. So that makes me happy. Top 4 hated teams: college, Oklahoma, Bama, Texas A&M, USC. I think you could throw Texas in there. Texas ruffles some feathers. It's going to be interesting to see how Georgia responds without Bowers. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Especially because he is such a big catalyst to that offense. Now, I am running out of batteries. So let's get to Alabama versus Tennessee. Unbelievable game in front of us, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable game. Whenever we look at this game last year, tough fought game, and my goodness, that offense last year was sensational. What Hendon Hooker was doing in that veer and shoot, and especially with the pre-snap motion, being able to motion a receiver, get him in an advantageous position, one-on-one against a safety, and then go over top. I mean, it was fun if you weren't an Alabama fan. It was fun if you weren't an Alabama fan. If you were an Alabama fan, it wasn't that fun. But regardless, when I look at Tennessee this year, and look, you can say the same argument for Alabama, and we're certainly going to talk about it. I don't see a Hendon Hooker. I don't see a Hendon Hooker dominating. I don't see a Tennessee offense that's just taking the top off of your defense. And unfortunately for Tennessee, their best receiver got hurt. And so now you're taking on an Alabama defense that if you look at the adjusted stats, Alabama's a top 5 defense in most major categories. The pass rush for Alabama right now is sensational. Both Chris Braswell and Dallas Turner are averaging over a 20% pass rush win rate. Wild. The linebacker play for the Crimson Tide has been awesome. And then the DB room has been really good. And I think when we look at this, we can maybe, you can argue about what Texas A&M was able to do to mitigate Tennessee, or lack thereof. The one thing I will say, I have a lot of faith in that Texas A&M defensive front. It's fantastic. I think Alabama has a better linebacker room. And I think if you're asking me the keys to stopping this Tennessee offense, I'm looking at those inside linebackers. I'm looking at Tresman Marshall. I'm looking at Deontay Lawson. I'm looking at Kendrick Blackshire. I'm looking at Jahad Campbell. Those guys right there. It's a unit that's been playing real well for Alabama. Real well. That's going to be huge in trying to get this Tennessee rushing attack off of its spot. Outside of that, you're asking yourself, can Joe Milton make a play? Now, we know Joe Milton has got a cannon. We know he's got a cannon. But can he consistently hit the throws when they need to be made? I don't know. We haven't seen him be able to do it thus far this year. I'm not going to say he can't do it because obviously he's capable. He's playing Division I Power 5 football for Tennessee. He's a very talented guy. Jacob, you have my score dialed in, brother. That's the exact score I've been running with all week since Monday on Bleacher Report all the way to now, 31-20. So we're going to go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off. I have Alabama winning 31-20. Love that. Tennessee's got to find a way to keep Alabama honest because right now, as we sit here and talk, when you look, they don't have a Jalen Hyatt that can take the top off of your defense. And in fact, Alabama's secondary is playing much better this year than they were playing last year. Malachi Moore is having a great year. Caleb Downs had a rough start, but he's a true freshman, and now he's been the highest graded true freshman in the nation per Pro Football Focus. There was one week where he was one of the highest graded safeties in the nation. The young man is coming alive. If you watched A&M, the interception he got was unbelievable. It's a nighttime game, Mars. I believe it's the 6:30 game. I believe it's 6:30. Because I know I'm going on. No, it's 2:30. So we'll be ending at 6:30. I knew there was a 6:30 correlation. We'll be going on Bama Standard at about 6:30 after the game. That's about the time we plan to go live after the Alabama-Tennessee game for the reaction. 2:30 game. 2:30 game. I knew that there was a correlation to around 6 o'clock. That's why when I looked at it, I was like, what the? Anyways. Bama's secondary is better this year. So what do I think Alabama's going to do? Well, I think whenever I've researched Nick Saban, everybody's picking Bama, so I'm going to pick the Vols. Leave. Get out. Everybody boo. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All good, blood. And look, I'm going to tell you the reason why Tennessee can get to Alabama. We're going to talk about that as well. But whenever I look at Nick Saban defenses, I know he loves his cover threes. Whenever I look at Tennessee, I think they're going to dare Milton to beat him. I think Alabama's going to try and take away the run and say, we're going to just bet on you not beating us over the top. If you can man up with our guys, beat our safeties, beat our corners, cool. But you're not going to run the football on us. So I think you're going to see a safety largely stacked down into the box. I think you'll probably see Caleb Downs over top. I think he's got that ability, and I think, man, he's playing good. And Jacob, you hit it. Turnovers are going to be big. 16-3 Bama. Man, if they hold Tennessee to 3 sooner in Texas, I'm going to be so happy. Y'all won't hear the end of me. I mean, you will, but in my mind, yeah. We're at the part of the show where we just start having fun, ladies and gentlemen. Let's flip the script because I think Alabama's defense has got ways to bottle up this Tennessee offense. Not keep them from scoring, but I think they have ways to bottle them up. When we flip this, blood, to your credit, how can Tennessee get after Alabama's offense? Alabama has got to find a way to mitigate this Tennessee pass rush. Tennessee is going after quarterbacks. Fair play, blood. Fair play. I can respect that. I have love for that. There's that connection there. I forgot that. I get that. I still dislike you a little bit more. Our friendship isn't at the level it once was. Understand that, but I respect it. I can respect it. But to your point, blood, whenever we look at Alabama has been awful at keeping Jalen Milroe upright. Now, the question is, whose fault is that? Now, a lot of this goes on offensive line. A lot of it goes on Jalen Milroe. A lot of it goes on Tommy Rees. Alabama needs to base out of 12 personnel. Personally, I think Alabama might have the most slept, well, I won't say the most slept on tight end room, one of the most slept on tight end rooms, because I bet there's some pretty freaking unbelievable tight end rooms out there. We just don't even know about them because their offenses are anemic. But I can guarantee you this. The Alabama tight ends are really good. Amari Niblack is a straight up mismatch. And if you've been keying in, you'll know 84 is a difference maker, an absolute difference maker. I said this during the Bama Standard. Alabama's offense is still trying to find themselves. You send 84 to Washington, you put Amari Niblack on that Washington team. Oh my goodness. What's already an unfair offense is about to become unstoppable. Amari Niblack is a mismatch, a true mismatch. Bama's red zone defense is pretty good. Pretty good, Mike. Pretty good. Bama's defense is good. It's the offense that, man, it'll at least keep you invested in the game. That's what I'll say. If you're an Alabama fan, you're invested because you're at the edge of your seat. But it's not just Amari Nyblack from the tight end position. I'm looking at CJ Dippre. I'm looking at Danny Lewis. I'm looking at Oots. There are so many different names that you get involved. Put yourself in 12 personnel, chip off that edge, because we know that they're probably going to put their best pass rusher over top Caden Proctor or Elijah Pritchett, the left tackle position, because if you're asking me what the biggest problem on Alabama's offensive line has been, it's been the left tackle position, and they're going up against one of the best pass rushers in all of college football. Give your guy some help. Chip him with the tight end and then do a chip and release so that once the tight end chips, if the guy still makes it through, Jalen Milroe can just boop right down to Oots, Dippre, Lewis, or Nyblack and let them work. Let them work. That's going to be a major thing in this game. I watched Tyler Booker. He did admit offense didn't play all 4 quarters. He admitted on the Paul Feinbaum show. Hey, I love that they're at least self-aware, but now we need to see them take self-aware and transition it into tangible. 100% blood. 100%. 100%. 100%. I completely agree with this. I actually have a video coming out later this afternoon where we break down in depth Alabama's biggest threat. I'm going to tell you who it is. It's Alabama. It's Alabama. Ty, do you think Texas would win if they played or do you think Bama would win if they played Texas now? I don't know. Because, the game would be played. The game will be played. And I think it'd be a much different game, though. Right? I think it'd be a much, much different game. A much, much different game. But there'd still be nuances, back and forths, what have you. And Texas has this uncanny ability to show up for massive games. So it'd be a different game. But would we win? I'm not sure. Sorry, Ty, I just don't trust Reese. I feel y'all will lose. Hey, listen, I hear you. I trust him more than I trust Bill O'Brien. And I said this the other day. Think about it like this. Last year, Alabama had Bryce Young. They had Jahmyr Gibbs, both of which went in the first round, and they struggled putting up 20 points on Texas. This year, they didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs. They were absent a first-round running back, absent a Heisman-winning quarterback, and in my opinion, a true talent in Bryce Young. They're absent all that, and they put up more points on a better Texas defense, in my opinion. I think this Texas defense this year is better than the Texas defense last year. So I'll take Reese over Bill O'Brien, but the inconsistencies have been there, Stephen. No arguments here. No arguments here. I've had my frustrations. But I believe Alabama gets it done. I'm going to tell you exactly why right here. Because whenever we look at this game, these offenses have been somewhat analogous. They have struggled to get consistency in the passing game. But one offense has been able to make things happen where the other just hasn't. Alabama will find 2 or 3 or maybe 4 big passes in this game. And that might be all they need. Jalen Milroe throws a beautiful deep ball. Truly, a beautiful deep ball. And if Alabama connects on 2 or 3 of those deep passes, that could be all the difference. Give me Alabama winning this game 31-20. I think it'll be a very close game. I think in the third quarter, we start to see Alabama pull away. And I think that the catalyst for Alabama pulling away, big time interception by number 2, Caleb Downs. Taking it to the bank. Let's hit some comments, then we're going to get out of here. Crazy Sooner says 24-20 Bama. Crazy. You see, we got something. We got something here. You're not trying to give me a heart attack like Blood and Steven. Looking at you, Steven. Looking at you, Blood. Y'all are over here trying to give me a heart attack. My little heart can't take it. There are no great teams this year. The Natty is up for grabs. I can agree with that. My dog just tried to bum rush my door. I can agree with that. I think that there's a lot of good teams this year. I just don't know who will win. So, yeah. Reese is also young, so if you can hold on to him for... So, Reese is also young. Here's 3 things, guys. 3 things I'm going to leave you with. I'm not trying to defend Reese, but he's young. He's 3 years older than me, or 4 years older than me. I'm 28. He's 31 or 32. He's a young guy. 2, he's never worked with a quarterback like Jalen Milroe, ever. He had Buckner to work with. I'm going to leave it there. And 3, he's having to transition from his offensive style to trying to mend what he does with the Alabama offensive style. And I know every time I say that, I get people saying that's wrong. Alabama shouldn't do that. Understand why Alabama does do it, though. Because Nick Saban was sitting there saying, I'm doing my players a disservice if I have to replace an offensive coordinator every 2 years. Because people come to Alabama and 2 years later, they get head coaching positions. That's just the nature of it. I mean, time and time again, it's happened. So instead of making my offensive players who were only here for 2 to 4 years, most of them, instead of making them learn a new system every 2 years, we're going to implement our own offense, have it be fairly flexible in what it can do, where we have this baseline recipe that we can make multiple different meals out of this one baseline recipe. That's another thing we've got to keep in our minds, that he's having to run Alabama's offense and trying to put his own little stink on it, which I thought would be more 12 personnel. But in fairness, I thought Bill O'Brien would implement more 12 personnel. And I'm not going to be happy until someone gives me my damn 12 personnel. Oh, I think he's got some upside, Bryce. I'm also jaded from last year. I think he's got upside. I've seen more creativity at points than I saw last year, and because of that, I'm in. But it's got to improve. I just don't see Bama getting beat back. I agree. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. We got 2 videos coming down the pipe today. So be on the lookout. 2 videos coming down the pipe. Really excited about them. Tomorrow, we will be on the Bleacher Report doing our national show. Hope to see you all over there. Download the Bleacher Report app. Seriously, they are doing some really cool things in the college football content department, and I think they have a vision. And I'm excited about it. And hopefully I can continue being a part of that vision for them, because I've got some ideas. And I think that it would be awesome for the content side of things. But you can catch me over there tomorrow with Jay, with Nino, with Steven. Always a great time. Other than that, guys, you can catch me back here Monday, where we'll be reacting to all the games. Enjoy your weekend. And as always, have a good time. Thank you to Shady Mile. Be good. That's it. See ya. Do you want more Shady Mile or 12 personnel? To quote one of the greatest commercials ever made, ¿Por qué no los dos? ¿Por qué no los dos? And that's where I end you with. That's it. We'll see you next time. Be easy, guys.